case of Jocelyn Nungaray and the arrest and charging of Johan Jose Martinez Rangel and Franklin Pena. Today, was it Pena that was? Franklin Pena was arraigned, his bond set at $10 million. The charge is capital murder of a child between 10 and 15 years old. At this time, the current charge does not carry death penalty eligibility. However, it is important for the public and the press to know that the investigation is ongoing, that forensics and lab work are required in this case, and unlike on television, they can't do it in an hour. So we look forward to the results of the tests that are being run on the evidence in the case. And should those tests produce evidence that would support a charge of sexual assault, or should other evidence be brought forward that supports a charge of kidnapping, both underlying offenses would make this capital murder and these individuals death penalty eligible. Make no mistake, this is a horrific crime. And when we take charges, we do it based on the evidence we have at the moment. We look forward to working with our lab, continuing to work with our investigators, and it's obvious that Jocelyn had a loving family. The support that they've shown will continue because their daughter, like all of our children, was one of our most vulnerable citizens. And we have to protect our most valuable resources, our kids. So our hearts go out to the Nungaray family. I want to bring up at this time Alexis Nungaray, Jocelyn's mother, for a few words to you. If there are questions about the case that we can answer, then our lead prosecutor, Megan Long, will be available to answer it. She is assisted by Elizabeth Lieberman, who is here but in the back. These are the prosecutors who will be handling the case. They'll be back tomorrow for the arraignment of the second defendant, Johan Jose Martinez Rangel. Alexis?
First and last name spelling?
Yes, first name is Megan, M-E-G-A-N. Last name is Long, L-O-N-G.
And Elizabeth Lieberman. And she'll have to tell you where the I's and the E's go after this. All right. Alexis?
I thank everybody for being here to make notice, a national notice for my daughter. She was amazing. I still see her face in the back of my head every day, all day. Keep getting little signs about her throughout the days, and it's just been a very, very hard time for me and my family. But the amount of support I've been getting from everybody it's very, it's from the bottom of my heart, so appreciated. I hear her sayings just replaying over and over on in a loop in my brain. Her dorkiness, her quirkiness, she definitely made people laugh. She's I'm always gonna remember those memories because she had such a bright future ahead of her, and I knew she was gonna go very far. And you know, these monsters took that opportunity from her, from our family, of watching her. And I just want people to remember, I know this is a very high profile case, but she was still my firstborn. I was a teen mom. I fought for her at 15. So 27 now, I'm still fighting for her. And just remember that she was a very special little girl that deserves her justice. And I know she's gonna make a difference in this world for all children. And now it's my job to make sure it continues to happen. So I just want to say thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Okay, you did great.
Question for you. The judge set a bond at $10 million. This was higher than what the district attorney's office asked for. Were you surprised by this? And what's your reaction to the judge's decision?
Well, my reaction is that I support bonds that are sufficient to hold high-risk defendants in custody while they're charged with violent crimes and awaiting trial. We need faster trials, and that's part of why we created a homicide division and asked the legislature to prioritize murders and capital murders, which they did. So we're supportive of the bond that was set. We'll ask for the same bond for the co-defendant tomorrow. And as soon as our lab results are back, and if they support a death penalty eligible type of capital murder, then we'll come back and ask for no bond.
Can you talk about the death penalty from 10 to 15 years old and how that impacts the district attorney's office when trying these cases, how there isn't eligible for a death penalty for some reason, this age restriction from 10 to 15 years old?
Our laws treat the age of victims differently, and they've changed where they draw the line. Used to be children under 6 if they were murdered. That created an underlying offense that would support death penalty in capital murder. That law was expanded to 10 years old and under, and then further expanded from 10 to 15 if the victim was 10 to 15 years old. Yet death penalty was taken off the table by the legislature, and instead they suggested that life without parole would be the appropriate charge. But age is not the only consideration in this case or any case. The underlying actions of the criminals. This victim was found, bound and without clothing from the waist down in the water, and we just think that there's a good possibility. We hope that there's evidence that remains to be tested.
Is there any indication that the suspects knew Jocelyn, or they lived in the same area, maybe crossed paths at any time?
No.
Do you know why, if that 10 to 15 age range, why, that particular age doesn't warrant the death penalty?
No, you would have to ask the legislators who passed that bill. I think they were expanding law and order, and they wanted the most vulnerable victims to be better protected, but for some reason took death penalty off the table. I don't know why.
Ms. Nungaray mentioned this is a high-profile case. Can you talk about what direction or advice you give your prosecutors if you're handling something this high-profile, or what your expectations are for them when there's this much attention?
So let me take just a minute to brag on the prosecutors that we've carved out to serve in the homicide division of the Harris County DA's office. It's a relatively new position. We've had it for the last 3 years. The idea was to reduce the trauma for victims by putting our most qualified prosecutors on capital murders and hopefully not having to reassign them as often, so that these family members didn't have to go through the trauma of working with new prosecutor after new prosecutor, as can happen here. So, it's a reflection of our intent to better serve crime victims. And the lawyers that are on it are a reflection of our desire to have the best of the best, trying the worst of the worst.
It was determined that a sexual assault happened, it would become death penalty eligible. Does that mean you would prosecute it as such?
It doesn't mean that. We make determinations about whether or not we're going to seek death very carefully. We have a committee. It is not a thumbs up or thumbs down decision by the elected DA like it used to be. I changed that. And the committee looks at the evidence, including evidence presented by the defense, especially if it has to do with mental illness or intellectual disability of any kind. We have to take that into consideration. And so it's a lengthy process to decide what is and is not an appropriate case to seek death on. We've been very circumspect with it in this office, but we have sought it. And we always take the wishes of the family and the feelings that they have about punishment into consideration. They have to rely on us for the ultimate decision. I have to rely on the prosecutors for the ultimate decisions, and that's why it's so important to have dedicated people in these positions, and I can assure you that Megan and Elizabeth are dedicated.
Can you speak about the mechanics of having someone on an ice hole while a state case is being prosecuted?
You know, I can't speak to the ankle monitor that this fellow that Franklin Pena was wearing. Is that right? I can't speak to ICE putting ankle monitors on folks and releasing them. Our immigration system is broken, and if there was ever a case that reflected that, it's this one.
So you're not able to confirm if one of them put off their ankle monitors after she died?
I can't confirm it. Mm-mm.
Well, we weren't able to have audio in the courtroom, so you were successful in proving that he was a flight risk to the community. Can you talk a little bit about that, the fact that he did have an ankle monitor on during the time and why he is a flight risk to the community? I think it was also mentioned they were talking about getting money to basically be able to flee. Just talk a little bit about how you were able to have success in him being this flight risk.
Correct. So one of the big factors for us is connections to Harris County. Have they been here for a long time? Do they have family? Do they have a job here? What sort of ties would keep them here and ensure that they would show up one day for trial? Franklin Pena, our understanding, got here in mid-May, so he doesn't have those connections to the community. And so for us, that makes him a flight risk. Additionally, he was talking to his boss, who works in construction, and asking for money because of what they did to get out of town. So that was an important factor for us to highlight to the judge, to show that should he get out, we can't ensure that he would come back and face his day in court for what he did to Jocelyn.
That was a local construction company?
Yes.
Did he tell his boss what he allegedly did?
There's an understanding that something went wrong, someone got hurt, and someone was killed. But as far as any more details on exactly what he said, no.
Did the boss notify police?
Yes, the boss came forward and spoke to the police.
Is that how they ultimately found out where they were?
That is one of the ways that the police were able to determine where they were and who the suspects were.
We just did a story last week out of Judge Josh Hill's courtroom about a murder case taking 4.5 years. His courtroom in particular has an enormous backlog. How are you going to ensure that this family can have a fast process and their loved one, they could get justice and not take years to go through this court system, specifically his courtroom? We do see a backlog.
For us, it's really important to, as soon as the case comes in, to start working, to get essentially our boots on the ground. I come from a fantastic division where myself and all of the homicide divisions, investigators from our office, were out there ourselves interviewing possible witnesses, trying to find everything we can. So a big part of it for us is getting our process started quickly, getting the evidence in our hands, and then evaluating the case. Additionally, it's just getting the testing done in a timely manner really helps us move cases along and get justice for Jocelyn sooner.
Let me answer that question too. It's very important that the public know that judges control the schedules. Judges tell trial lawyers what day we're going to trial. Judges decide if continuances will be granted. Judges decide if we've completed all of our discovery obligations. So we rely upon the courts for scheduling, and that's why I've suggested that we need faster trials, and that's why we sought that law change, why we created this division, and why these prosecutors these are the prosecutors that want to go to trial. These are the prosecutors who object to the defense continuances. So we've got a lot of hard hitters and heavy hitters in homicide with a directive from me, John Wayne, to go try these cases now.